What's up, weirdos?
Hey, yo.
Me? Shit. I got me a little something rolled. The lights are low, and we're about to chop it up with Abigail on the Manic, Pixie, Weirdo podcast.
Okay.
A safe space for weirdos of all shapes, sizes, colors, and creeds to relax and speak their piece.
Speak that piece.
So grab your glass of wine and grass the chief as I get off the mic so the main weirdo can speak. Peace.
Peace, God.
What is up, weirdos? You're listening to the Manic Pixie Weirdo. I'm Abigail, your host, and this is the podcast where we talk about all the different kinds of relationships that you can have in your life. And this week is the beginning. This week is the beginning of the series that we are going to be doing for the next couple of weeks. So this week we're going to be talking about my relationship with libertarianism and more specifically like PaleoLibertarianism, because I have no idea what what that one is. So we're gonna dive into it a little bit, sort of get some, perspective, some insight, hopefully, and a little bit better understanding, I think, of libertarianism and sort of like the different branches of libertarianism. Let's just go ahead and I will start with this this definition that I found, and this is on the Cato Institute. I'll put all of the sort of like sources that I pull from in the show notes. So just kind of like keep a lookout for that. They're not super in depth. They're just sort of like very general things to like give you an idea, a better idea, an understanding of kind of like where I got some of my information from. So this from the Cato Institute says libertarianism is the belief that each person has the right to live his life as he chooses, so long as he respects the equal rights of others. Libertarians defend each person's right to life, liberty, and property. In the libertarian view, voluntary agreement is the gold standard of human relationships. If there is no good reason to forbid something, a good reason being that it violates the rights of others, it should be allowed. Force should be reserved for prohibiting or punishing those who themselves use force, such as murderers, robbers, sexual assaulters, kidnappers, and defrauders who practice a kind of theft. It then goes on to say stuff like most people live their lives by the code of ethic, by that code of ethics. Libertarians believe that code should be applied consistently, even to the actions of governments, which should be restricted and protected, which should be restricted to protecting people from violations of their rights. Governments should not use their power to censor speech, conscript the young, prohibit voluntary exchanges, steal or redistribute property, or interfere in the lives of individuals who are otherwise minding their own business. Okay, so that like sounds really good to me, right? Like I'm like, okay, like who's not getting on board with this? Like what what's happening here? So I dove a little bit deeper, and on the Cato Institute, if you go to like they have like a link to libertarianism.org, and it's just libertarianism.org. Justice, property, responsibility, tolerance, cooperation, and peace. Many people believe that liberty is the core political value of modern civilization itself, the one that gives you substance and form to all the other values of social life. They are called libertarians. So that's kind of like that. But what I kept sort of running into when I was doing my research on what libertarianism is and like what it is they like firmly believe, I kept running into the difference between like I kept running into this word liberty, and sorry, okay, had to cough. Oh, this is going to be a rough episode. Sorry guys, I've been sick. Right. So liberty kept coming up, like the word liberty kept coming up in my research when I was looking up what libertarians believe and so it kind of got me wondering, what is it? And what does that mean, liberty? Because there are a bunch of different kinds of definitions to liberty. There's there's the definition that says liberty is a man's right to breathe. And then I found this definition, which is from Liberty Explained. So liberty, according to this website, is the freedom to choose or to do or not to do a thing without interference from outside forces. The less outside forces, the less outside interference in a decision, the freer we are. So the most common form of interference being threats of violence or force if the wrong choice is made. But it got me thinking okay, well, what's the difference between freedom and liberty? So according to the same website, which, they said, and this website fully admits that they got these definitions from Wikipedia. So just keep that in mind. So what they say freedom is generally having the ability to act or to change without constraint. In philosophical discourse, freedom is discussed in the context of free will and self-determination balanced by moral responsibility. Liberty, broadly speaking, liberty is the ability to do as one pleases. So it's a synonym for the word freedom. Now that kind of, I don't know, was a little bit annoying to me, I guess, that they are synonyms, but they don't really have, there's not really a distinction, or a difference really between the two. There's, so basically, from what I come to understand, liberty is the state of being. So liberty is the state or being, the state of being free. So that's what this says. In modern politics, liberty is the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. But freedom itself is it's not an action. Freedom is not necessarily an action. Freedom is freedom is the ability to do an action. Okay, so freedom is the ability to do something without outside forces coming in and telling you no, you can't do that. Whereas liberty is the state of being. So it's the state. So when you are expressing freedom, or your freedom, liberty is that state of being. It's that that feeling that you get when you do it, if that makes sense. That ability to do things. So if, liberty isn't the action. Freedom is more of the action, but liberty is the the will to be able to do it, kind of a thing, I think. At least that's how I understand it from the various and sundry definitions that I got. So that's we kind of went down a rabbit hole there, but anyway, it's okay. We kind of went down a rabbit hole. It's fine. But I just, so I kind of want to talk a little bit more about libertarianism, before we get into PaleoLibertarianism. And I think libertarianism it's much like many different systems of government where it sounds fantastic on paper. It's amazing. It sounds great on paper. You get, you read all these things about oh, it's about freedom and it's about freedom of expression and being able to do stuff. And obviously there are things that we don't, you don't have the freedom to do, murder someone or like sexually assault someone or those kinds of things. Like that's not what they mean by freedom. What they mean by freedom is like your ability to like choose. Like your ability to choose like, hey, I don't really want to get the COVID vaccine. I don't trust it. I don't want to do that. Like it's kind of, it seems super sus to me. I don't really feel like, that's a thing for me at this point in my life. Or like, so that would be like freedom of choice. So like freedom to choose. Freedom, like another freedom would be like freedom from something, where like you are free from like you're free from outside forces influencing you and telling you like you have to believe this, you have to believe whatever we tell you. Which again, like it all sounds fine. It sounds like that sounds fine, like of course. Like I don't, I don't like the idea of someone coming in and telling me like someone or a body of someone's coming in and telling me, like, hey, you can't do that. And the answer is like, and then when you ask the question, like, well, why? And the answer is like, well, because we said so. Like, that's never been a satisfactory answer for me. Okay. That's just a little bit, like about me. Like, it's never been a satisfactory answer. It's never something that I have sort of just like accepted. I've never been that person to just be like, well, okay, I guess, like that's fine. Um that's just not like how I think or like how I operate. So I think that kind of brings me to the whole I forget what the name of it is. Hold on. We'll look it up really quick. Okay, found it. So it's called the non-aggression principle, or the non-aggression axiom. Again, this is from libertarianism.org. And basically, well, this part isn't, but that's what it's called. This principle is called. It's called the non-aggression principle, and so the basic idea is, if I swing my arms, right, I can swing my arms as fast, as hard, as slow as I want, right? But the minute that one of my arms touches someone else or interferes with someone else's like stuff, is it's not okay. Like it's not okay anymore. And so that's kind of like the basic idea behind like the non-aggression principle. And I understand that. Like I get that. It, it sounds great. It really does. It sounds fine. In theory. All in theory. I think it sounds fine. Now where I think so I found like a list of like what the Libertarian Party, like what their platform is, sort of like just like in the United States kind of a thing. And it pretty much so it goes into, I found this article, it's on thoughtco.com. This article was published in August of 2019, so it's possible that these things have changed since. This is just kind of like a very brief, broad overview as to like what the Libertarian Party platform is here in the United States. So like their fiscal policy, they oppose taxation in all forms. And it deals with revenue loss by opposing entitlement programs across the board. Okay, and then like corporations, the party would eliminate all federal subsidies to private corporations as well as all antitrust laws. Public services, they would like to do things like eliminate the postal service. It wants to transfer all government services from public schools to landfills to private ownership. Property rights, big thing. The party would restrict the public domain and to immediate public use and sell or give away most public property to private owners. Criminal justice, it would eliminate all anti-drug laws and legalize prostitution, as well as end random police roadblocks. I'm all for legalizing prostitution. Like, let's do that. Let's get that shit done. Legalize drugs. I'm fine with that, as long as we have. Well, that's a different thing. Free speech. The party would abolish the FCC and allow private ownership of broadcast frequencies. It opposes all restriction of free speech, including that in the name of national security. Interesting. Church and state. The Libertarian Party calls for reduced IRS regulations and monitoring of tax-exempt churches. I mean, I'm not opposed to monitoring tax-exempt churches. Like, I'm not. That I don't think that there's a problem with that. I can't like foresee any reason why that would be an issue. The draft, it calls for the abolition of the selective service system and amnesty for citizens who have never resisted the draft. Reproductive rights. The Libertarian Party is pro-choice. It opposes all federal funding of abortion and federal entitlements for women who will choose to carry their pregnancies to term, including the child tax credit. It opposes involuntary or fraudulent sterilization. Interesting. LGBT rights. The party opposes the don't ask, don't tell doctrine. It believes that marriage is a private contract, and as such, it should yield no government benefits regardless of the gender of the partners, excuse me. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, as far as like, yeah, the government shouldn't be able to tell you like yes or no, like who you can and cannot get married to, or whatever. Like, I don't think anybody should be allowed to tell you that. Not just like specifically like the government. Immigrant rights. The Libertarian Party argues that borders should be open but surveilled. Everyone who does not pose a threat to public health or national security should be allowed to enter the country legally. It would deny all federal benefits to undocumented immigrants. And it goes on, like the article kind of goes on to like, but those are kind of the big ones, I think. So that's just sort of a little bit about that. As far as like, what their platform is, what it is that they stand for, like here in the United States. And I think, I don't know, it seems very individualistic. It seems kind of like the ultimate form of individualism, or like individualism on steroids, where it's like everything is about the individual and about the self. And I don't, sorry. I don't know how I feel about that necessarily, because I don't necessarily think that like any one person does anything by themselves. Like, even to a certain extent, like this podcast, like I don't do this yes, I do like the editing, and I do the like the recording, and it's like it's my show, like all that stuff. Yeah, I do like all of it by myself, but I don't either, like, because I do have people that like, I interview, and I have, somebody who did my intro. And so like, to me, it's more of like a kind of a collective group effort. More, that's sort of like how I see the world, is that it's more of like a collective group effort. Like, nobody does anything by themselves. And I don't think that anybody should have to do something by themselves. Like, I think that we should, be willing to help people, kind of a thing. And so like, I don't know. It just seems it seems like an incredibly individualistic, and like the self and the individual are the most important thing in this, like within this system, within the libertarian system. And, I don't know. In order for, like, in my mind, in order for that to be the case, and in order for like the system to work, kind of in that like fantastical, like fantasy utopian version where like this is what, you know, like we translated everything from the paper into the real world and it all works perfectly. Kind of a thing. I don't really have like an issue as far as it, you know, is concerned on that level, because at the root of it, it seems like there is a lot of faith that is being applied to people, um, like to individuals and to people. And um and by that I just mean like there's a lot of like faith in the fact that like, you know, people are going to do the right thing, because like within this system, the system doesn't work unless everybody kind of like has an understanding of like what the quote unquote right thing to do is and what the quote unquote wrong thing to do is. And it just feels like there's a lot of faith and a lot of trust being placed onto um like everyone. And don't get me wrong, I don't have an issue with like with that. I don't have an issue with that. That's kind of beautiful in my mind. It's kind of like a beautiful, like fantastical notion, because it's like I personally I just don't see the world like that. I don't have that much faith and trust in human beings on an individual level. That's like a really scary thought for me, that like I would need to put that kind of trust and faith. And I guess to a certain extent an argument could be made that like, you know, I already do that, like by living my life, like I already do that. You know, like when I got Mulu to do the intro for the show, or when I, you know, when I asked people to come be on the show, there is some trust and there's some faith that like I have to implement there. So like within myself, that I have to like implement with other people and other individuals. Um and so like I could see an argument being made like, well, I'm already kind of doing it. My argument to that though is that like I kind of feel like I'm not, because I'm a control freak. And I just I letting go of like allowing somebody like that to me, because that to me that's not like an infinite amount of trust. That's a very specific situation in which trust has been applied or faith has been applied into another individual. And also to a certain extent, like in the case of Mulu, like I paid him, so I donated to his stuff. So it's kind of like I paid for kind of a good and service sort of a situation. Um, and to me that kind of like removes removes most of like the fear there, and the lack of trust and the lack of faith that I would that like I that is required of me to have in another person, because uh like I paid for it, kind of a thing. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if any of that makes sense. But that's sort of, it's just my whole point in saying all of that is that it seems like a lot of faith and a lot of trust that I just simply don't have right now. Like I really don't have that. And I don't really know I don't really know what it would take for me to get to a place where I would feel comfortable having that kind of like faith and trust and hope in, you know, on an individual basis, like not to do something that like would, you know, put people in danger or be a detriment to the society, because society is like a collective group. Like we all like, in order for society to work, we all have to work together for society to work in whatever direction that is. Like we all work in this capitalistic hellscape system kind of a thing. And so like it works, like it continues to work as it is being not laid out, but as we progress, you know, like, and so the system, like systems only work if everybody's sort of like on board with it. And and I don't know. And one of the things that like that is required within the libertarian system that seems to me that I just like it's like freaking me out like a little bit. Like I'm getting a little bit of anxiety, like even thinking about and like talking about like having to put that much faith and trust into like other people. Like I don't know if I could do that. Like that's like a lot. I think that's asking a lot of people. We're just not like I'm just not there yet, I guess is the thing, is that like I'm just not there yet. um so the other thing that I kind of wanted to know was like, okay, well, what are the other sort of um like pitfalls, I guess, of libertarianism? And I think that I did find a good article that sort of like goes into um a little bit about like what the like, because it sounds, you know what I'm saying, like it, like everything sounds amazing when it's on paper and you like are reading about it and you're like, oh, okay, like this sounds cool. Like maybe I might be entertaining the idea of like being libertarian, or maybe I like what, but like, so what does that mean? And like but everything sounds like, you know rose colored glasses. Like you have your rose colored glasses on when you're reading it on paper and when you're reading the theory about it, but the implemented practice of it is a totally different thing. Like trying to bring that into reality is a totally different thing. And I mean, that's not to say that there aren't like success stories with it. My only sort of issue with like bringing up success stories of a libertarian society would be that you could kind of say that for like anything. Um, and so, I mean, it sort of negates the argument to me if I can point to like other systems of government that also worked for long periods of time. You know what I'm saying? Like it just kind of it's sort of like, yeah, but you can say that about any form. So that doesn't really like it to me. It doesn't like really help um sort of understand, like how to bring it into the real world. Because that's always the rub. That's the catch, is trying to bring these systems of government into and implement them in the real world, where we have things like humans who kind of like fuck shit up a lot of the time, which is another reason why I'm really struggling with the whole like having faith and that much trust in people. But I, I just kind of, I was wondering, what are the like problems with libertarianism? Like why would somebody not, you know, want to be associated with libertarianism, or why would somebody not like the idea of it? Um and I found a couple of things that were, it's all kind of, it's all kind of the same, as far like the lists were all kind of the same as far as like what the pitfalls were. One of the big pitfalls that I found was that like libertarians don't believe in a minimum wage. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that like um there are schools of thought of like, what am I trying to say? Libertarianism is very much like small government, and it's very, very small government. It doesn't think government is the solution to problems. It thinks that government is the problem and that people are the solution. Sorry, so sorry. Told you guys it was gonna be kind of a rough one. Um but anyway, and so I think that sort of stems, I think that like not having a minimum wage is kind of the like an extension of that. And that's really sort of the rabbit hole that I went down, was the idea that like it does seem like libertarians believe that like government is the problem, like big government is the problem, and individuals or groups of individuals are more of the solution to all of these sort of like systemic issues that we have um within like the United States, specifically the United States. And so I I mean, as some like I like the idea of the minimum wage. I like the idea of someone being like, you can't pay your workers 2 cents like an hour. That's not okay. You cannot do that. That's not no, that's not livable. Nobody can do that. Nobody can live on that. And I don't like the idea of somebody just being like, well, I should be allowed to pay my employees 2 cents if that's what I want. Like, I don't like, that's not like, come on. No, please no. Like, let's see. Again, I don't have that kind of faith. I don't have I don't have that trust. I do not have the ability to trust other people that much to not be, because the outrage. Like, I could totally see myself like in a scenario in which like somebody were to tell me something just like obtuse like that, where it's like, yeah, no, so I only pay my employees like, $1.25 an hour, and the federal government says that like I can do that because it's fine. And I know myself well enough to know that I would just be like, but like it would break my brain, if that makes sense. It would like break my brain a little bit, and I would have to be like, okay, walk away, because it would just be a huge mix of emotions and very I don't know. I would have like issues with that. So that was like one of the big things that I like noticed. Especially when I was sort of diving into it, was like, okay, so that's sort of a pitfall, I guess. And I don't know if that's accurate, as far as like, I don't know if that's, I just know that's how I would react to it. That is how I think most people would react to it. And I don't think that most people would agree that like, if you want to pay your workers $1.25 an hour, then you should be allowed to pay your workers $1.25 an hour. Like, no, there has to be a standard. And see, that's the other sort of like thing for me, where that libertarianism sort of breaks my brain a little bit, as far as like the faith and the trust and like that sort of thing goes, is because like that's what I mean by like a lot of faith and trust, is that like you would have to trust that people are not going to be greedy. You would have to trust that people are not going to exploit other people. That people are not going to, you know, discriminate against other people based on like really kind of bullshitty things. And by bullshitty things, I mean like things that nobody has things that not necessarily know, like things that you don't necessarily have control over. So like your sexual orientation, your race, your gender, like things like these are things that you don't necessarily like have control over. Um, like once you get here, like on planet Earth, like you don't, like it's, does that make sense? And so I don't know. I just, I think what it really comes down to is I don't have that much faith and trust in people, and this system requires me to have a lot of faith and trust in other people and other individuals, and I'm very uncomfortable with that. I'm very, very uncomfortable, and I think that says more about like me and like the kind of person that I am, rather than like than more of a reflection on like the libertarian system as a whole. I think that's much more of a reflection on myself, and like who I am and how I operate. I don't know. I don't have that. I don't have the ability to have that kind of faith and trust in people in a way that, like, on a massive scale, to where I think it would, like, legitimately work. If that, I don't know if that makes sense. We are going to take a quick break. And then when we get back, we will talk more about libertarianism and PaleoLibertarianism. But we'll be right back. What is up, you guys? I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our sponsor for this episode, Newsly. It's an audio app for iOS and Android where they basically take articles from all over the world and all the trending topics that are on the web at any given moment, and it reads them to you in like a natural voice, like a human being would. It's basically the first time in the history of the internet where the entire web becomes listenable. It's really cool, you guys. They have all different kinds of articles from all different kinds of topics so that you can like stop scrolling and start listening, which I really love. You can follow all the, any topic, all the topics, whatever topic you want to talk about or listen about, from sports, science, Bitcoin, even the Kardashians, like everybody. They have all the latest articles and it reads them to you. So it's super easy. They also have podcasts, which is why I'm talking to you guys about it, because our podcast, along with podcasts from over 50 other countries, are on the app. So that's really, really cool. You can start listening there as well. You can download and use Newsly for free right now at www.newsly.me, or you can use this link in the description. And when you use the promo code P1X1EP0DCAST, that will give you a free month of premium subscription to Newsly. So go check it out, you guys. And thank you so much to Newsly for sponsoring this episode. And we're back. And we are talking about my relationship with libertarianism and PaleoLibertarianism. So I think we've pretty much covered libertarianism. Yeah, so let's kind of get into PaleoLibertarianism. And PaleoLibertarianism is just it's just like a subset of libertarianism. So like there's all these different, there's like libertarianism is like the concept. So if you have like a bubble, I forget what kind of diagram it is, but if you have like a bubble, libertarianism is in the middle, and then there are a bunch of like offshoots of libertarianism. So there are different types of libertarianism, and PaleoLibertarianism is one of those types. This isn't like exclusive to libertarianism, like all sort of like systems of government or schools of thought, if you will, have offshoots and have like various and sundry different like ways of thinking about whatever that center idea is. But it's all like some version of, these like root based ideas. And paleolibertarianism. So apparently, I found this website. It's a blog, actually. It's called Libertas Bella. Liberty is beautiful. I'll put a link in the show notes to it. But so it actually is pretty comprehensive, and it was updated most recently in March 2022, March 29th, 2002 specifically. 2022, excuse me. Like specifically, if you want to know a little bit more about that, just to like how recent it is. And so, okay, so it says that paleo-libertarian thought emerged out of a well-being established classical liberal tradition that put private property and market activity on a pedestal. The paleo qualifier is used due to how the paleo-libertarian ideology has its origins in classical right-wing thought. And then it just goes on to kind of like talk about who were the most like influential in the 19th and 20th century, like just a little bit about the history of it. People like Lord Action, British historian Lord Action, in the 19th century, and then you have people like Howard Buffett, Senator Robert Taft, writers such as Garrett Garrett and Albert J. Nock, that kind of thing. But I did want to read this little bit about, okay, the schism within libertarianism. The libertarian movement experienced a significant rise in the 1970s and quickly witnessed the Libertarian Party emerge as America's leading third party. The Koch brothers, Charles and David, helped form the Cato Institute along with Murray Rothbard in 1977, signaling a promising new age for libertarians. So the Koch brothers, along with Murray Rothbard, created the Cato Institute. So remember earlier when I referenced the Cato Institute, I just want you to keep that in mind when understanding the sources of where things come from. And so you have a better understanding of who is writing the stuff and what it is they're saying. That's the only reason I sort of wanted to just clarify that within what the Cato Institute is and who founded it and that sort of thing. But apparently, okay, so paleo, this is I really liked this blog post for a lot of different reasons because it really breaks it down. And so the title of this section, I guess, of the article or the blog post is the Paleo's Break from Conservatism. So during the Cold War, apparently, it temporarily united libertarians with conservatism through the fusionist movement, which coalesced around the issue of preserving a market-based economy and resisting a totalitarian state. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. However, once the Soviet Union collapsed, the alliance started to gradually collapse, which is where you get things like neoconservatives and stuff like that. So the paleocons are not as hostile towards economic interventionism and in fact favor protectionist measures such as tariffs. Additionally, some paleocons favor using the state to break up major companies that hold excessive market power and provide subsidiaries to promote family formation. Paleocons are not afraid to use the state to proactively push forward their traditional values. And by traditional values, I assume they mean Judeo-Christian traditional values. We'll just give me 2 seconds. So no, actually, I was wrong. They do not mean traditional Judeo-Christian values. Apparently, there's not really a good general consensus of what that means. The only real answer to what that means is as traditional values are is sorry. So I found this a website called Study Smarter, and it talks about this list, and this guy Robin Williams, not the comedian, I had to look it up to check, but Robin Williams, in 1965 specifically, he created a list of 10 American values. So they are as follows: success and achievement, individualism, hard work and endurance, efficiency, science and technology, materialism, freedom, democracy, equality, and group superiority. So those are what is meant. Pretty general, the general consensus is that, this guy kind of nailed it. And this is what is meant by traditional American values. I would agree with some, not with others, but that's neither here nor there. That's not really relevant. So that's what that means. Side quest. Just kind of wanted to put that out there for everybody to know about. I'll put that in the show notes too, because the article, or it's not really an article, it's more just like it's a part of a sociology, like helpful stuff tips kind of thing. Goes through like definitions and things of that nature. So I'll put a link to the show notes to that if anybody cares to look at it. So that's apparently what it means by what people mean when they say traditional American values. And those were specifically like American, just so you know. Okay, so the paleo philosophy. Apparently, paleolibertarians opposed the initiation of fourths both in the private and public spheres. The latter is of the utmost importance since the state is perceived as the biggest source of aggression and violator of property rights. Okay. Let's see. So paleolibertarianism is definitely opposed to the welfare state, central banking, and foreign policy interventionalism. Libertarians of all stripes view the state in a negative light. However, paleolibertarians believe that the state is an inherently evil institution and a mechanism of perpetual mischief. Okay, interesting. So also, okay, so this is how they view like market interactions. And voluntary action is seen as morally superior forms of activity. Private property would be a crucial pillar of this system, and it is viewed as a hallmark of a civilized society. In addition, paleos view the church, communities, the family, and other mediating institutions as building blocks of a healthy civil society that maintains social order. Additionally, these mediating institutions protect individuals from state encroachment. Yeah. So, and then it just goes on to talk about like the traditionalist tendencies. It's egalitarian, paleo-libertarians reject egalitarian ideals. Just all the things. It really. This is a really, really, really great blog post. So I will definitely link this in the show notes. But I mean, so it's really just a very I don't want to say crude. It's more of that, because that's not the right word. It's just a very like traditional way of viewing libertarianism, it seems. And they pull from like the Austrian economic system of thinking for like economics and stuff. We won't go into like all of that, but so that's sort of paleo-libertarianism in a nutshell, I would say. But so that's kind of that. If you have thoughts, if you have feelings, if you'd like to know more about it, or anything like that, you can reach out to me at manpixieweirdo@protonmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at MPWeirdo Podcast, or the TikTok and Instagram are the same, _main_weirdo1. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate your time. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. I did. So thank you guys so much. I love y'all. As always, be kind and stay weird. Have a good one.